everyone, I hope everybody is doing well. So in the last video we completed erythrocytes, and in this video we'll be talking about leukocytes and the platelets. Okay, so now let's get into our topic. Leukocytes. Leukocytes are also called as white blood cells. Now, why are they exactly called as white blood cells? Like in the last video, we did study, or we got to know that the red blood cells are called as red blood cells because they have this red colored iron containing pigment called as the hemoglobin. Now, can I assume the white blood cells are called as white blood cells because they are colorless and they don't have the pigment, that is the hemoglobin, to give them the red color? Okay, so white blood cells are basically cells that are devoid of hemoglobin, so you can assume them to be white or colorless. Okay, so of course they're not going to help me in the transportation of oxygen because one of the common functions of your leukocytes are they are phagocytic in nature. Okay, they act as macrophages. Okay, so you will see them a lot. Say you are infected or something like that, and when I take a sample of your blood, the number of WBCs will be high in number. Okay, so usually the number of WBCs in our body is very less, but at times of infections or at the time of allergies, when I take a sample of your blood, the number of WBCs are going to be higher in number, not as much as high as that of your RBCs, but high enough to kill the allergen particle that is present in your body. Okay, so they are nucleated, yes, because they don't have to give any one surface area because they are not transporting any kind of gases for us, and they are very less in number that are present. Okay, like around 6,000 to 8,000 millimeter per cube of blood. Okay, they are generally short-lived. Okay, why? The only function of these will be just to kill the allergen particles that are present, which is why you will see they are very short-lived. In the case of RBCs, they live for 120 days. Okay, now if you see, I have two main categories of WBCs that are present. Okay, we call them agranulocytes and the granulocytes that are present. So what are the two basic categories of WBCs? I have granulocytes, which have some grains like structure in them, and I talk about agranulocytes, which don't have these grains that are present. A means absent, so agranulocytes means the grain like structures are absent in these kind of WBCs. Now talking about granulocytes, I have three categories or three examples in them. We have neutrophils, we have eosinophils, and we have basophils. These are the three types of granulocytes that are present. Okay, now if you see, you can see neutrophils are given to us here. Okay, and we have basophil that is given to us here, and we have eosinophils that are given to us. Okay, now when scientists, so this is like a story basically. Okay, so when scientists were conducting experiments, or they took up some acid stains and they took up some basic stains. Okay, now since these WBCs have grains in them, the grains are going to take up the stains that are present, yes or no? Okay, now neutrophils, why are they called as neutrophils, is because when they gave them acid stain and when they gave them basic stain, okay, they took up both the stains. Okay, which is why neutral means both acid and basic together are called as the neutral thing, right? We call them neutral when the acid is present in the same concentration and basic is present in the same concentration. That condition we call it as a neutral condition. Okay, so neutrophil is basically a type of WBCs which takes up both the stain. Okay, on the other hand, if you see, I have basophil. Why is it called as basophil? Baso means face, which means it takes up only the basic stains that are present. And can you also see the small grain like structures that are present? So if you have a question, if they give you a question asking you to differentiate between agranulocytes and granulocytes, you can just look at the small grains that are present, and here in the case of your monocyte and your lymphocytes, they don't have these grains that are present in your granulocytes. Okay, now if I talk about eosinophils, why eosino? Eosino means acid. Okay, so the WBC that takes up the acid stain is called as the eosinophils that are present. So understood? Okay, in the case of agranulocytes, I have two examples that are present. Okay, one is your monocyte and the other one is your lymphocyte. Okay, so under lymphocytes, I have two again examples, that is your T lymphocytes and your B lymphocytes. T lymphocytes are originated from your thymus, which helps in cell mediated immunity. Okay, and on the other side, your B lymphocyte that is present, it helps in the humoral immunity of the body. Okay, so this is basically associated with your immune system, your T lymphocytes and your B lymphocyte. B lymphocyte means it comes from your bone marrow, which is why B lymphocyte. T lymphocyte because it comes or arises from your thymus, which is why it is called as the T lymphocyte. Okay, now talking about their functions, or if you look at their structure now, okay, if you look at their structure, you can see the neutrophil that is present. It is a multi-lobed structure. Okay, can you count? I have one lobe here, 1 2 3 4. Okay, there are around 4 lobes that are present. Yes, and at the same time, if you look at your basophil is basically a tri-lobed structure. Okay, now it is not very much visible here, but just know that the nucleus of the basophil is a tri-lobe structure. Okay, on the other side, you can see the nucleus of the eosinophils has a bilobed structure that is present. Okay, so one trick to remember here is basophil. Okay, so B does not come along B. So B is tri-lobed and E is bilobed. Understood? Now is your monocyte. Okay, now your monocyte that is present, it has these the nucleus, if you see, it has this bean shaped structure that are present. Okay, and you can see in the case of lymphocyte, it is just some spherical nucleus that is present. Now talking about your neutrophils, okay, you can see neutrophils. Okay, so we have, like, if I collectively call granulocytes and agranulocytes, we have around 5 kind of WBCs that are present in my body. Okay, in these 5 types of WBCs, neutrophils are like the most abundant type of WBCs that are present in my body. Okay, around 60 to 65% of my WBC has neutrophils in it. And what is the function of neutrophil? It is phagocytic in nature. Okay, so any new particle that comes into my body, your neutrophil is going to engulf them. Okay, it is phagocytic in nature. Okay, and if you see, have basophils. Okay, when neutrophils are like the most abundant kind of WBCs we have, your basophils that are present, they are like the most least, like around 0.5 to 1% of them. Okay, remember basophil, base means it is at the base. Okay, so base is always going to be at the lower level, right? Okay, so know it like that. Okay, remember it like that. Okay, and then I have the eosinophils. Eosinophils are around 2 to 3% of my blood that are present. Okay, so eosinophils are not very least, they're not very much too much, or they're just present. Okay, they're around 2 to 3% that are present. Okay, so next we have monocytes. Okay, and also one more thing is that your neutrophils are called as polymorphonuclear leukocyte. Why polymorpho? Okay, polymorpho means it has, poly means many, morpho means morphology. Now if you look at your neutrophil, you will see it has many morphological forms. Yes, okay, polymorphonuclear. Nuclear means nuclear structure. Okay, so since it has many lobes, okay, you can see the one nucleus has many morphological forms, which is why it is also called as polymorphonuclear leukocytes that are present. Okay, now we know that basophils are like the least amount of WBCs that are present in our blood. Okay, now your basophils that are present, now we did study about basophils somewhere, right? Where did we study about them? We did study about them in the case of mast cells. When we were studying about areolar tissue, we studied that the mast cells that are present, they contain these granules that are present. Okay, and these granules are nothing but your basophils, which secrete histamine, serotonin and heparin that are present. Okay, which are involved in the inflammatory reactions. Okay, now we know that heparin is something that helps in the coagulation of the blood, and histamine is secreted during the allergic reactions of the body. Okay, now anytime you have an allergy, you have an inflammation over a part of your body. Okay, why? Because during that case, your basophils have secreted your histamine, serotonin and heparin, which are involved in the inflammatory reactions. Okay, now like I told you, eosinophils are present around 2 to 3% of my body. Okay, and again they are associated with they are associated with allergic reactions, and your lymphocytes are present around 20 to 25%. They are of two types, B and T lymphocytes. Okay, B comes from your bone marrow, T comes from your thymus. B is involved in humoral immunity, and your T is involved with the cell mediated immunity, okay, which are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Yes, we're all perfect with leukocytes now. Yes, moving on to platelets. Okay, now if you see platelets are also called as thrombocytes. Okay, now platelets are not actually the complete cell, but I can say they are like the fragments of the huge cell that was present. Okay, they're like the cell fragments. Okay, we had a very huge cell called as megakaryocytes in the bone marrow. Okay, now these megakaryocytes, when they underwent fragmentation, the cell fragments that we got are nothing but your platelets, which are also called as your thrombocytes. Okay, now you can see, when compared to your leukocytes and your platelets are more in number when compared to your WBCs. We have around 1,50,000 and 3 lakh to 50,000 of platelets per millimeter cube. Okay, now these platelets that are present, they release a variety of factors or a variety of substances that are actually involved in the coagulation of blood. Okay, we also know there are a certain coagulating factors that are also present in the plasma of the blood. One we studied, that is your fibrinogen. Okay, now if my platelets are releasing coagulation factors, if there are less number of platelets in my body, what usually happens when I have an injury or an accident that is present and there is loss of blood that's happening, what usually happens is my blood loss is not prevented because the platelets are very less in number, and if platelets are less in number, the number of coagulation factors that are released are also going to be less, because of which the coagulation of blood is going to take time in my body. Okay, which is why it's very important for all of you to keep your body healthy.